Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Camera Brave Show. My name's Marissa, and in this episode, we're going to unpack some of the struggle behind digging deep, specifically having to dig deep post-burnout. This is going to be a relatively short episode because there's not a ton I want to say here, but I do want to share a little bit of my experience, and I think that's going to relate to some of you, especially those entrepreneurs out there, and tell you kind of what my experience has been and some of the things that I think have helped me so far. Okay, so let's just talk about burnout because I don't think it's talked about enough. I think for entrepreneur culture, we talk a lot about hustle, grind, productivity, and a lot less about burnout and being gentle to ourselves and taking intentional time off of our business, making sure that we are okay and working on ourselves instead of having to be this powerhouse, working on our business, building, constantly improving, constantly growing. Because the truth is, in order to continue to move forward like that, you have to continue to dig deep within yourself and to be okay with where you're at and things that are going on, because things change so quickly when you're in business for yourself. Everything's constantly changing. You're growing, or you're selling, or you're launching, or you're bringing on team members or getting new clients. Things are constantly changing, and we need to normalize a little bit more talking about the space to be able to process these things and to be able to breathe and feel valid in taking some time off. I think some of the trickiest parts of burnout I think it's twofold. I think number one, we don't always know that we're approaching a burnout. We don't always know that we're about to just be completely fried. Sometimes, and this is speaking from me personally, we get so into the hustle, grind, productivity, improvement, constantly working, constantly grinding, and we don't realize how much of that is taking away from us. That we're actually in the process of trying to better ourselves in our business, that we're actually depleting ourselves, even if it's not physically, but mentally and emotionally and spiritually, we're getting depleted. And not recognizing that is tough because there isn't really someone that can tell you, hey, you're approaching burnout. It's something that we have to recognize within ourselves. We are the only ones that are able to see the difference between I'm working hard, I'm doing good, I'm loving it, and okay, I think I need to slow down a little. Like, it's a fine line when you're trying to grow a business or grow anything, honestly. And I think that's one of the trickiest parts about burnout is not being able to see the radar, you're not going to be able to see the bar slowly get filled. And then once it turns into a red X, that means you have to take time off, right? It's not like that. It's subjective, and it depends based on what season we're in. Right now, as I'm recording this episode, we're pre-holiday season. I know once it releases, I think Christmas will have already passed, but I'm personally in a state where I haven't really slowed down for the holidays because I'm focused on my goals, and I'm actually more in a ramp up season. I've been laser focused on my morning routines and really trying to better myself as an entrepreneur for the new year. And I set up a challenge for myself that was very difficult. It was a 30-day challenge, and I made it 21 days in until the burnout came. And I felt a little bit like a failure for having to quit the challenge, but I didn't realize how much pressure I was putting on myself. And one tiny little thing threw me off, and I had to kiss it goodbye. It was over. So let's talk about the second hardest part of a burnout, which is reintegrating yourself to working, hustling mode. Now, I'm not a big fan of that word hustle because I think it kind of is overused, and I think that it kind of goes against my philosophy of needing rest, but I'll call it productivity. It is so difficult post burnout to integrate yourself back into being a productive version of yourself, because again, there's no one to tell you This morning I woke up and I had on the books to get my workout in. I wanted to go kickbox this morning because I had taken several days off this week and today was my day. And when I woke up, I was like straddling the line of, am I okay enough to do this? Like, do I have it in me, or do I really need to rest? Should I sleep in? Is it really going to take from me instead of give back to me if I go to the gym? And then it was, or am I just trying to sleep in a little? Am I actually competent and fine enough to do this? But I've been giving myself so much slack these last few days that I'm kind of used to giving myself slack. So am I using that kind of burnout that I experienced this week as an excuse? And in reality, going to the gym would actually make me feel better. But I was completely between the two of talking myself into it and talking myself out of it, and just being completely 100% transparent with you guys. Getting up here and recording this podcast episode was also something that I was kind of on the fence about, because I have so many things going on right now, not just Camera Brave wise, but just some personal things going on and amazing things that I'm so grateful for and that I'm so excited about. But I had to very intentionally tell myself, I'm going to dig deep. I have to dig deep today. I know that I felt burnt out these last few days and I rested. And I allowed myself to take that time off. But today I have to dig deep. And that's tough when you've been so gentle on yourself. And it's not that I'm necessarily being tough on myself, but I'm being honest. It's like, okay, you can have that time and that space to recover. But if you're okay enough, then you've got to keep pushing forward and recognize that. If you are struggling with a burnout right now, or if you are approaching one steadily or recovering from one, I want you to know that you're not alone, that burnouts happen. I think they differ depending on your personality. So there's no like guide, right? The ultimate guide to a burnout, the ultimate guide to recovering from your crash and burn. Like that's not something that we talk about. But if you're a type A personality like me, or if you're just constantly trying to work on a goal or yourself or even a challenge, whatever it is, I do hope that this episode may help some of you that may be about to burn out and that are like full steam ahead, like crushing it and really going for it, but need to maybe take a beat and need to maybe reassess the limits of themselves and what they're capable of, like in that current season, not what you've been capable of in the past or not the standards that you set for yourself, but listening to where you are right now. But I'm on the other side of said burnout. I've taken a couple of days and I've decided that I have to get some form of back into it. And that is not talked about a lot, is reintegrating yourself into, if it's getting up and going to the gym. For me, it was going to kickbox this morning. I was so close to not going. And then once I got in the door, I was so glad that I went. But it's hard to know those boundaries when you've been so gentle on yourself, knowing what is going to be helpful in a sort of pushing and feeling like you're getting back to normal, or what's going to hinder you and actually deplete you and just take from you. I don't have the magic answer at all. That's why this is going to be a short episode. But I wanted to share my experience of ramping up, being productive, hustle, grind, get it, go after it, finish the year strong, and then the abrupt burnout that I experienced. And sometimes you get like a tingly feeling like, I may need to slow down a little. I may be approaching a burnout. And I'd had that thought over the weekend, but we had things planned. There were things on the calendar. It's the holidays. So we had things scheduled for this weekend that were fun. They were family oriented and, they were great things that I'm very glad that I didn't miss out on. But let's call it what it is. It was still taking. It wasn't recharging. It wasn't restoring what was being taken. It's almost like it's hard to tell what's going to be fulfilling and what's going to be depleting when you're in these sort of in-between seasons. And If you are approaching burnout, I do hope that you're able to pump the brakes before you crash. Now I'm reintegrating post burnout, and I am having to dig very deep because of how gentle I was on myself, and acknowledging that there's no one in charge of me. My entrepreneurs, do you hear me? There's like, no one is in charge of you. No one is the boss of you. There are people and moving parts that depend on you. But if you're able to sort of slide by and get things done, it's really easy to want to do that and to ignore this need to dig deep and to reconnect with you and the way that you feel accomplished. Because that's the thing for me. I had felt like I had taken the days off and that I needed to feel accomplished. I needed to feel like I got done what needed to get done. If you listen to this episode, the fact that it has burnout in the title tells me that you may need to slow down a little bit. And if so, just remember that there aren't necessarily people in your life that are understanding how heavy everything that is happening in your life is right now. That doesn't mean that we don't have amazing supportive people in our lives, but maybe they're not able to see all of the moving pieces and things that are affecting you daily, especially having your own business, especially with other projects you may have going on. If you need to take your time, please take your time. And if you are like me and it's a little too late for that, then I wish you the fortitude to dig deep and know that getting back to feeling okay is your number one priority. And to challenge that voice in your head that's saying, well, am I able to do this? Is this too much for me? Challenge that voice and saying, can I afford to not do this? Can I afford to sleep in past another workout? Or is that going to upset me more than if I go hit the gym right now? And to me, it was absolutely that little voice in my head was like, are you sure you're ready? And then the other voice was like, you can't afford to continue to feel sorry for yourself. You can't afford to continue to keep recharging and resting because you're disguising like laziness as rest. And you've rested and you've recharged. And now it's time to just get to the point where you feel like you've accomplished enough for that day. It's a Friday. Whatever's got to get done today, it's got to get done today. And that is the voice that encouraged me to create this exact episode. I know this is a very specific episode. I do hope that you guys enjoyed it, but it is something that is that I'm very much connected to. And whenever I do a topic of something that I'm going through currently, and when I release an episode that is very close to what I'm currently feeling, I see it in the numbers. You guys enjoy it more. When I had my car accident, I did an episode I took a break, and then I did an episode talking about having to rest and talking about what I was going through right there. And if you listen to that episode, you can hear my energy is so flat. It's not on video because this was before I did the video component, but I probably would have had to skip the video because I was barely able to get up and do this. It was seriously digging deep. And you may be able to hear it a little bit if you listen to me all the time. You may be able to tell the difference in my energy here. That is my process. That's why I don't plan very far out with my content. And that is why I decided to talk about what I did today. I hope that this really resonated with some of you. Not that I hope you're burning out. Of course, I don't hope that you're burning out, but I do hope that you may recognize the need to push pause on hustle, grind, productivity, like go get it. It's yours. You got to work and be hungry and all of that, which is essential. But let's equally talk about rest, recharge, restore, being gentle and kind, and knowing that you aren't going to let yourself down. At the end of the day, you're going to be there to remind yourself you got to dig deep, to remind yourself, look, I know you've been out of it for a few days, but girl, you got to get it together. You've got to reconnect with that super powerful, productive girl, because that's who you are. And you've got to get back to her. And even if that means that it's hard and that you have to push yourself, reconnecting with you post burnout it's essential. Absolutely, positively. My friends, I hope you enjoyed this episode. As always, you can find me over at Camera Brave on Instagram and Facebook. I hope you have an amazing rest of your week, and I will see you next time.